developing Grand Avenue is part of our efforts to invest in city neighborhoods by providing residents with amenities and programs to help them thrive. I look forward to having children's laughter once again fill these historic halls as we return Grand Avenue to a place of compassion and support for the community.
By providing youth services in Holden Heights and having a venue for community programs, this facility will strengthen the fabric of our neighborhood, teach our children well, and prepare them to lead the way. But most of all, it will give them a sense of pride.
Actually, I'm excited for the community to see the expansion of the Paramore Kids Zone and all the opportunities that Holden Heights now will have here at this center, and then to have the pottery studio and many activities going on. It's quite amazing, and it's well overdue.
As part of the American Cities Climate Challenge, we partnered with OUC and the Science Center to bring the Orlando Tiny Greenhouse today. Visitors have an opportunity to engage in a lot of cool interactive features that will be guiding them on how to save money and reduce their environmental impact. Even though this technology has evolved, not everybody can afford EV or solar right now, so there's a lot of other great highlights of low cost and no cost opportunities to save residents money that you'll learn about when you visit the home. And the greenhouse is on wheels, so we're going to be able to take it around the community and have people enjoy it and learn from it in various different areas of our community.
Trailing Thoughts from Katy Way Trail. This trail is so wide. I like to think that Katy was the name of the engineer designing the trail, and and that someone came by and said, "Do you really think the trail needs to be 12 feet wide?" And she replied, "It's the Katy way."
What do you know about Dog Walker Watch?
I think it's a great program where dog walkers like me who are out and about in their neighborhood every day. They're the eyes and ears of the neighborhood, providing an extra set of eyes to the police. If you see something, say something.
It absolutely makes a difference because it will weed out the crime because they know that we're saying hello and greeting and that we've made eye contact and that I see you.
It's easy. You know, you're going to walk your dog anyway. You're going to say hello to your neighbors anyway. You're going to be walking through on a daily basis, so it's just important to contribute back to your community.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Pi Day. So that's 3/14, March the 14th, 2020, the workshop of the Orlando City Council. It's our pleasure to have Mayor Demings with us this morning. We're all happy those managed lanes have finally opened on I-4, and the I-4 Ultimate is finished, but we continue to grow here in Central Florida with 1,000, 1,500 people moving here every single week to Central Florida. And we're having great economic growth, great population growth. The only thing that's going to hold us back is our transportation system. If we don't have the resources to make sure that our people aren't stuck in congestion, they want transit options. I can't tell you how many times a week I hear, when is Sunrail going to get to the airport? When can we have Saturday and Sunday service? We need better bus service. Tired of sitting in congestion. So Mayor Demings, 2 years ago, right about now when the pandemic initially started, was put the mic closer. Okay, you think I'd done this before. 2 years ago, right about now when COVID began, Mayor Demings had proposed a 1-cent transportation sales tax that would be voted on by the residents of Orange County, and postpone that due to everything that was going on related to COVID. So he has brought that back, and he is here to give us a presentation on what exactly that means. Mayor Demings, the floor is yours. And welcome.
Council Mayor Dyer and all of you, and to those who have assembled here today, it's my honor to be here. It's been a little while since I had the opportunity to speak before the City Council. As a former Orlando police chief, I had that opportunity on a few occasions, especially around budget time, to come over. But in either case, today I'm here to talk about the potential for a Charter County infrastructure
Ed,
sales
can you get
tax
that a little
initiative.
more volume too?
Okay, are we good? Yeah, just pull that towards you. Okay, all right. All right, that sounds better, right? Okay, so as we talk about the Charter County infrastructure sales tax today, I want to share with you just where we are. Moving up to 2020, we did quite a few community engagement meetings where we talked about it, but obviously I had to suspend those efforts at that time because of where our economy was. So we've decided to re-engage in this process with the potential for advancing a sales tax initiative to the ballot in November of this year. As I have now done some, I hate to tell you how many, but over 200 different community engagement meetings over time. I always start these meetings by asking 3 questions, and I ask the members of the audience and these 3 questions, and I'm going to do that today for everybody here. How many of you in the audience today believe that we have a problem with traffic congestion? Would you just raise your hands? That's council members, others in the audience. Okay. I even saw Q over here for Channel 9 raise his hand up. Okay, so now the second question I always ask is this, is how many of you want the leadership in this community, that's elected and otherwise, to do something about it? Raise your hands, okay? And this is typical, most people do raise their hands. The third question I ask is perhaps the toughest question I always ask people, and it is this. Now, that you know that you've identified that there's a problem, you said you want the leadership in the community to do something about it, how many of you are willing to help pay for it? That's help pay for it. Raise your hands. Okay. Usually there's a little fall off, but I get the overwhelming majority, so I got you on the hook at this point. You said there's a problem, you want us to do something about it, and most of you have said that you're willing to help pay for it. So now I'm going to introduce a video that is going to set the landscape for the remainder of the conversation that I'll have with you today. And so with that, if we can cue up the video.
Orange County has one of the largest growing populations in Florida. Each week, nearly 1,000 people move to our area, adding to our 1.4 million residents. By the year 2030, Central Florida is expected to add more than 1,500 residents every week, with a projected population of 5.2 million. Currently, Orange County ranks 43rd out of 67 counties for transportation spending per capita. That is among the lowest in transportation funding in the entire state of Florida. Lynx and Sunrail routes do not have the frequency and coverage area needed to meet the current demand. And pedestrian safety is among the lowest in the United States. We need to look to long-term solutions before it's too late. Existing funds are used to maintain and improve nearly 3,000 miles of existing roads in Orange County, which do not include highways such as I-4. They also fund traffic signals, streetlights, pedestrian walkways, and public transportation such as Lynx and Sunrail. But due to steady population increases, our transportation system is underperforming. Raising these taxes would still fall short of our current needs and place the burden solely on the residents who live here. Research shows that a dedicated 1-cent sales tax has the potential to generate revenues sufficient enough for transformational improvements to our local transportation system. This tax will provide the opportunity to put tourist-generated revenue directly to work in our neighborhoods and improve the transportation needs in our community. Other surrounding counties like Seminole, Brevard, Lake, and Polk counties already have a higher sales tax rate than Orange County. A 1-cent sales tax would only apply to the first $5,000 per single purchase of retail goods, as well as services not including essential food items, prescription drugs, and utilities. Because of our diverse local economy, we are positioned now better than ever before to solve our transportation challenges today. Transportation is the common link that connects our community from employment to education to affordable housing. In 2019, Mayor Demings held 7 town hall meetings to find out the needs of Orange County residents. He attended 200 community events, and 11,000 surveys were completed. We listened, and now it's time to act. We need to look to long-term solutions before it's too late. But we can't do it alone. Together, we can solve our transportation problems of today and tomorrow.
All right, and with that, we're going to move forward. Let me just, are you able to see the screen at this point? Okay.
Got it.
In 2020, we had nearly 11,000 different surveys that were completed, and we listened to the residents of our community about what it was they wanted to see in terms of the transportation solutions. As is indicated here, I participated in nearly 200 different presentations. At that time, we received over 4,000 different comments and recommendations from our residents that we use to shape the plan that we have re-engaged with at this point. In 2022, we have received over 3,700 transportation surveys, and we would encourage any of you, anyone listening, to also complete the transportation surveys. So far this year, I had up to today participated in more than 45 community engagement opportunities. We have scheduled transportation open house meetings, and I'll talk more about that. You can see that we're moving these meetings around the county. So far within the last few weeks, we have done them in each of the Board of County Commission districts. We have one tonight that is in District 4, which will be at the Meadowwoods Recreation Center. And then we have one a week from tonight at Colonial High School in District 3, and we would have done one in each one of those respective county commission districts. We're also moving around and doing presentations to the different city council or town councils during this open house session. What we've heard is this. People want us to address issues related to pedestrian and bicycle safety. I don't have to tell you, but you know we rank near the bottom in terms of pedestrian and bicycle safety in our nation. In terms of traffic congestion, in a growing community, a county that is growing by a net of nearly 1,000 new residents each week, we know that the traffic congestion is going to only worsen. And as a region, you saw in the video that within the next 10 to 20 years, our population will grow significantly by millions more. One thing that people said about this is that they want to ensure that as we grow, that people have access to jobs and different opportunities centered around the collection of this tax. They want us to lower the cost of transportation for the average worker in this community. So this is what we have chosen as a priority, that ultimately with this initiative, we should lower the cost of transportation for the average worker. There are some sustainability related issues. Obviously, when we talk about building roads, in many cases, we infringe on environmentally sensitive lands. When we talk about traffic congestion, it impacts air quality. There's also an intersection with health. If you think about it in many ways, when you sit in traffic and you grow in frustration, right? So in terms of one's mental health, there's an intersection with health. Obviously, if our air quality worsens because we continue to put vehicles out on roadways that are fossil fuel burning vehicles, it's not environmentally friendly. In terms of pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, when we talk about adding bike lanes and all of that, there's a component about public safety there where we want to reduce the accidents with pedestrians and bicyclists within our community. And then what the people told us was that they want this plan to be transparent. So as we build this plan, this is a plan that is of the people and by the people, that we will go into community meetings like this. Once we have the final plan, before we ask any of our voters to vote for it, they will know precisely what it is that they will be paying for and what type of benefits they will receive. If we do this correctly, we want every working person to see themselves benefiting in the narrative of the story. This has to be about the greater good of our community. One of the things that they also said was they want accountability. They want to ensure that the governments spend the dollars on what they said they would spend it upon. And so we have a organizational chart that will allow the citizens to have some direct input into the accountability. I'll talk more about that in a moment. One of the things they said is that in order for this to be something that the citizens can get behind, this system has to be well connected. It has to be convenient. It has to address mass transit related issues. And so we contemplate that with the LYNX bus system, that we will likely be able to double the size of the LYNX bus system today. We have approximately 300 buses in the LYNX system today that serves 2,500 square miles, because it not only serves Orange County's 1,000 square miles, but it serves Osceola and Seminole County as well. To put that number into perspective, Mayor Dyer, you may recall we went and we visited with Pittsburgh, and we met with Allegheny County representatives. Allegheny County is a county of 1.2, 1.3 million people and 745 square miles. Their public bus system has 700 plus buses. We, just in Orange County alone, 1,000 square miles, with, before the end of this year, we'll have 1.5 million people in Orange County. And we have 300 buses. So you see, if we double the size of the bus fleet, we can improve connectivity, we can improve convenience, we can cut the average wait time between buses down significantly to today 6 to 7% of the bus routes between the buses running. It's an average of, it could be an hour or better.
but we believe that if with this dedicated funding source, we could flip that to where rather than 94 to 93% of the routes taking an hour or longer, it will end up being the exact opposite, 30 minutes or less for the average route. That, for our general riders, could be significant. It could be a game changer for them. One of the areas that will be improved more significantly would be the paratransit, providing adequate bus service for the disabled in our community. This would create jobs. Obviously, if we double the size of the Lynx bus fleet, then Lynx has to more than double the size of its employ in terms of drivers, with some fairly attractive, I think, rates of pay for the drivers. We could certainly look to expanding Sunrail. Perhaps one of the areas that we could expand to would be the 441 corridor. There's an existing rail line. We would have to explore the opportunity for connecting downtown Orlando to, let's say, the Apopka area. We are very interested in bus rapid transit. You can see in the video there, it says BRT. This is where buses would run in dedicated lanes in our major corridors that don't have to compete with the normal traffic within our community, so that the commute for the buses will be more predictable. We also will look at multimodal options of transit within our community. We could look at potentially not only expanding the current hours of operation or the days of operation for Sunrail, but we could explore other types of connectivity. In the picture there, you see a monorail. What that additional linkage could be to our Sunrail system is yet to be determined. But yet we will have the funding to be able to begin those types of discussions and plan for our future. With this initiative, what I say is that this is a solution that will outlive all of us. It is a solution that in the next 40 to 50 years, perhaps children who are not yet born will be able to benefit from this. If we plan appropriately as visionaries in our community. To me, a visionary is someone who anticipates the need for something before it's needed, and they take action in a timely manner. In many ways, those of us who are elected officials, that's what the people elect us to do, to be visionaries, to not just make decisions that will impact us today, but decisions that will be impactful in years and decades to come. These are the typical areas that this sales tax will be used in. And again, this is based upon input from our citizens. Transit. I've talked a little bit about how we perhaps will improve transit options. Roadways, we will certainly more likely widen a few roads, improve intersections with technology and innovation. We would improve bicycle and pedestrian safety and provide, in some ways, true bike paths that are where the bicyclists don't have to compete with automobiles. We could spend dollars on operations and maintenance. In May of last year, it was due for the Sunrail to be turned over to local operations and maintenance. Of course, that didn't happen because of the lack of the completion of the planned route. The last leg to DeLand had not been completed. Through the leadership of Mayor Dyer and others, we did not accept the transition from the state to the local governments. That will come in the future. But what we can do is we could not only invest in capital items, but we can pay O&M from this sales tax. Here are some of the likely concerns. Many people say to us, why don't you just use the federal funding? Well, in terms of the Infrastructure Investment and Job Act funding, I visited Washington, D.C. I had the opportunity to meet with a senior member of the Transportation Department, one of the senior
deputy secretaries, as well as White House officials on that trip. What they said to us is that Florida is estimated to receive about $19 billion over the next 5 years, but we have identified through working with our technical experts, some are part of your transportation division here within the city of Orlando, we have estimated the total need for Orange County at $18 billion. So if the state of Florida is going to get $19 billion over the 5 years, it is very unlikely that we in Orange County will get $18 billion of the $19 billion. But what they said to us was that they anticipate the need for local funding matches, and in order to compete for those infrastructure dollars, what they said to us is that you really need to have shovel-worthy projects as opposed to shovel-ready because of some issues associated with supply chain and other things that are happening. But in terms of being prepared, they will evaluate the strength of the local applications for these dollars based upon the financial strength of your model. If you have a dedicated funding source, you are in much better shape to be able to indicate that you have the financial ability to execute broad plans. The second thing that they said to us was that they're very interested in transit-oriented development, TOD. Why? Because all across America, Americans are experiencing housing affordability challenges. And in a growing community like our community, we too are experiencing some challenges with housing affordability, especially today with the high rate of inflation that we are currently seeing. So we want to address all of those issues. If we can cut down on the cost of transportation and transit for individuals, effectively we would have given them a raise in some ways. If we can make certain that we are working in this space to deal with housing affordability, we want to be able to do that. There is an intersection with housing. I've already talked about the intersection with health within our community. And so here in Orange County, thanks to the support of the Board of County Commission, we created our own housing trust fund that over 10 years the county will put $100 million into that plan. Plus, this is the third year of that plan that was approved by the board in 2019. We are leveraging those dollars that we can control at the local level. We're leveraging those dollars to ensure that builders are building workforce housing, and preferably we want that workforce housing to be built in the job centers where people are working. So, for example, in our tourism corridor, we have an initiative, a partnership with Universal that created a nonprofit entity, 27 acres in that area. They will be building 1,000 units, affordable units, right near a transit station there, not far from the Orange County Convention Center. We want to encourage those types of things to happen throughout our county, so we're leveraging taxpayer dollars against private sector participation, philanthropic sector participation in these endeavors. And so this is how we will be able to compete when we apply for the various federal funding. One question comes up is, why don't you use tourist development tax dollars for other than supporting tourism promotion? Recent legislation passed allows TDT funds to be used for infrastructure if 40% of the TDT revenues are being used for tourism promotion. Today, we use 28.57% of our tourist development tax revenues for tourism promotion. In my humble opinion, that's probably enough because the TDT, as you all know, does not only support tourism directly, but it supports many other things. It acts as a catalyst for other investment in our community, such as with the Dr. Phillips Performing Arts Center. TDT monies have been used to help build the facility. Expansion of Camping World Stadium, City of Orlando facility, also has been a benefactor of TDT revenues. And when I think about the TDT revenues, it's not just about the building of the stadium, but all of the economic activity around the stadium that has occurred. I'm just elated when I see what has happened in that whole Tampa Avenue area. As a child growing up here, I know very well the conditions that I had to work in, and as a nearly 4-decade law enforcement officer, I saw some of the violent crime and drug crimes around the area. But today, that area has gone through a renaissance because of what has been happening through the decisions that this city commission has made. That whole area is being transformed. There's a new Boys and Girls Club that has opened up in the area. There's more workforce housing that is affordable that is in the area, mixed use and types of developments that anyone would want to live in. And I think that without the catalyst of having all the economic activity at Camping World Stadium there, that, as you know, we use TDT to help promote the bowl games, to provide incentives to sporting entities and games to come here, such as World Cup soccer, Olympic soccer, NBA All-Star games, NFL Pro Bowl games. When all of those come, people who live in our community benefit. They go to work. They vend around the areas. They work at the various venues and they earn income. And so the TDT helps serve as a catalyst for all of that. We use TDT dollars to help cultural tourism. We support events such as the Zora Neale Hurston in the town of Eatonville. We use TDT to help support the other arts in our community and artists. During the pandemic, we use dollars to help really provide venues for our artists to be able to go and to present and to make dollars, make money as a result of it. So the TDT is used in a number of ways. And for me, if we use the TDT dollars, expand the use of the TDT dollars, then we put at risk some of these other things that we have to do as a community. Where does the money come from for those other reasons? But I would tell you that we spent $144+ million of TDT reserves during the pandemic just to pay the bills, to keep our convention center open and keep it operational so that it can remain competitive as an economic engine, or one of the many economic engines that we have within our community. And so where does the money come from if you begin to whittle down the dollars? In the good days, the TDT could bring in some $300 million on an annual basis. The last few months, we've had some good returns on the investment that we have made, and we want to continue in that regard. But here are 4 other options, I think, that cities all over the country and counties all over the country use to pay for transportation-related improvements. One is the local option gas tax. And today, if we went up to the max that we could charge for the local option gas tank tax, it would bring in an additional $25 million. Remember that this is a tax that people pay when they go to the pumps. We see what the issues in the Ukraine has created across the globe in terms of gas prices. I don't believe that we really are interested in raising the local option gas tax, but if that was a decision that would be made, we could bring in an additional $25 million. In terms of impact fees, Orange County, under current Florida law, charges the maximum impact fees that it can charge. This is the fees that we charge developers for building here Development is supposed to pay for itself. Last year in 2021, the Board of County Commission increased impact fees to the max that it could charge, and it brought in an additional $44 million. Property taxes, it's an option. That if we increase property taxes is not one that I'm advocating for, but a 1 mil increase in the property taxes here within Orange County would bring in $161 million. A half mil, half of that, $80.5 million. I believe that the sales tax, if we want to truly transform our community in terms of having multimodal transportation options with a dedicated funding source, the sales tax is the best option that we have. It's not perfect. You know, today in Florida, the sales tax, the general sales tax for the state is how much? 6%. In Orange County, you know, with the various other local options, our sales tax, as you saw in the video, is 6.5%. By 1 penny or 1% increase, it would go to 7.5%. Just as a reminder, Osceola is currently at 7.5%. Lake County is currently at 7%. Seminole County is currently at 7%. So Orange County really has the lowest. There are some in our community who say, well, we want to keep it that way. What I would suggest is that if we keep it that way, the challenge we have is really meeting the needs of our community. What we're saying is we want to live with the traffic congestion. We want to not be visionaries and look to the future with solutions that we all have to pay for. In the United States of America, there are but 9 states that don't have a state income tax. We are one of them. So in this state, because we do not have a state income tax, the state depends more on the sales tax to provide and meet the service needs, as well as, you know, they get a portion of the property taxes, et cetera, and they have other revenue sources as a state as well. So $600 million over a 20 or 30 year period of time, you can see that we can do something transformative. We can leave behind a legacy for our children, and they will say, yes, this is, there were some visionaries at the time that were forward thinking and how to come up with solutions. The neat thing about the sales tax option is 51% of it is estimated to be paid by the tourists, the people who are coming here helping to clog up the roads. If we use the property tax scheme, if you will, that puts the burden just on the backs of the people who own property here. Everybody doesn't then put skin in the game, if you will. It's flexible, as I indicated before. We can significantly improve the transit options in our community because we can invest in the capital as well as relieve some of the pressure on our general fund budgets for the operations and the maintenance costs associated with it. It only applies to the first $5,000 of sales in terms of big ticket items. If you were buying an automobile, you know, if you were like Commissioner Burns and you bought a real fancy car and it cost $50,000, you would only pay the sales tax on the first $5,000, not on the remainder. It does not apply to essential grocery items, prescription drugs, medical supplies, and utilities. This is how we would share in the proceeds. As you know, as a charter county, the current law doesn't require the county to share the funds with the municipalities, but we have chosen to share a portion of the proceeds with the municipalities. So off the top, the really expensive $100 million types of items will be taken off the top. If we extend Sunrail into other geographical areas of the county, that could be expensive to do. Doubling the size of links does not just stay within unincorporated Orange County, it moves throughout the county. And so we would take 45% off the top for those major expenditures. If we do bus rapid transit, where we put corridors, let's say, where the buses run in dedicated lanes off of Cimarron or Colonial Drive or other areas of our community where people can move more efficiently through public transit, those are big ticket items. Then 45% would go to the county. The county would use these dollars to do roadway improvements. There are areas of our county where the roads have already failed, and so we would improve those roads because they go throughout multiple jurisdictions. You know, they may run through the cities and unincorporated areas, et cetera. And so we would spend dollars there. We would significantly improve the safety features that I already talked about, and then pay the O&M costs associated with improving our system. 10% will be shared with the cities, and you, the cities and towns, come up with a list of the needs within your respective jurisdictions. This is the municipal funding plan. 10% of the nearly $600 million, if you did rough math, that would be on an annual basis about $60 million. As you see there, the city of Orlando would, based on population, population estimate of just under 292,000 people will get 21+% of the funds, and you can see the total there for the city of Orlando that you would receive on an annual basis. If you see the green column there, I think it says 34 million there for the city of Orlando. Put on my glasses. Yes. Okay, so that's, you have a plan. I believe we have provided you with a copy of what your Transportation Planning Division has come up with. And as you see, this kind of summarizes the 27 projects, 63 projects for safety and technology, a total cost of unfunded for the city of Orlando at $338 million. Total capital costs over time, approximately $1.2 billion during the next 10 years. So this is where you, based on the data that you have provided, you have an average annual shortfall of $107 million, okay? So through this source, you can see what you would likely be receiving to help decrease the shortfall that you currently have. In terms of key timelines, April 26th is an important timeline. Now, between now and then, we will go back to the Board of County Commission and provide some workshops as we finalize some of the details associated with the plan that we will have received from these different community meetings, communications with our municipalities, and then on April the 26th, that's an important date because that is the date that the Board of County Commission will make the final decision whether or not to advance this sales tax initiative to the ballot and leave it up to the voters, the electorate, to make a decision whether or not to tax themselves in the manner that we are suggesting. May 12th is an important date because the ordinance language, the specific language, has to be presented to the state's Office of Program Policy Analysis and Government Accountability, often referred to as OPAGA, in order to get it on the ballot by the November the 8th election day. That is a timeline. If this passes with 50% of the electorate plus one person, we will begin collecting the sales tax in January of 2023. So less than a year from now, we will actually begin to collect the tax, and we will want to address things like right away, like the deficit of bus shelters for working class people who have to stand out in the rain, the heat, without covers, adequate overhead covers. We will begin to make certain that they will see right away some of those improvements occurring. We'll begin to tackle the issues around innovation with technology right away. We will begin to the process of perhaps doubling the size of links, where we will have a plan of procuring the buses necessary, and that could take a couple of years just to, from the date we order those buses to getting them and hiring the drivers and everything. It will create some upward mobility within links itself. So this is the ambitious timeline that we have. In terms of oversight and accountability, the people have been clear that they want to make certain that we spend the money how we say we're going to spend it. They don't want supplanting to occur. Many feel that when the Florida Lottery was first sold to the people of the state of Florida, it was for education, and the assumption was, I think by many, that the state would spend the lottery proceeds on top of the existing education budget in the state. Well, we know that the state made modifications in its budget, and you know, the overwhelming majority of the lottery funds do go to education today, but the state supplanted and reallocated dollars in the state's budget to other things other than for education over time. So the technical committee will be made up of the subject matter experts, the engineers and the planners from our various governmental bodies, as well as some private sector representatives that are the experts to make certain that when a jurisdiction submits their plan for expending dollars, that it meets all of the technical criteria. And then there will be a citizens oversight board. The City of Orlando will have a representative on that board. There will be a person who rides public transit that will represent the riders, if you will, and then the other appointees will come from the Board of County Commission. That oversight committee will work with the elected comptroller. Orange County is the only county in the state of Florida that has an elected auditor. That auditor will be working with these citizens to ensure that the spending plans and the spending that occurs is consistent. But the current Florida law says that the ultimate decision makers would be the Board of County Commission. The Board of County Commission cannot delegate its final authority to other entities. Hillsborough County, as you all know, the courts have ruled that when they passed their previous sales tax initiative, they had a citizen group that was sitting and making some final decisions, and the court said that that's inconsistent with Florida law. So the Board of County Commission would be the final authority through this process. And that's what that 18 body technical committee will look like. You can see the membership. Here's the citizen oversight structure, 11 persons. The mayor will have a representative from the public transportation consumer group, as I've indicated. The mayor of Orange County would appoint the chair of the oversight board, and each of our county commission districts would appoint a person. Then there would be a municipal representative here from the City of Orlando, and then there would be municipal representatives from the other smaller cities or towns within Orange County. So everyone will have representation on this Citizens Oversight Board. We encourage everyone. Your input is important to us. we ask that you take the transportation survey. You see, you can go to ocfl.net/transportation. At all of our community meetings, we take hard copies, so we do receive hard copies from that. We will be taking input through the end of the month. That input, again, will be used by the Board of County Commission to make those final decisions. And so I think that's the presentation this morning. I didn't get into the details of the list, the project list that you submitted. I think that's something that you all are likely already familiar with. When people ask, what specifically would it pay for? Well, it's the items in the city of Orlando from the project list and some of the other things that we talked about. So we will, again, go back to the Board of County Commission through those workshops, and we will begin to laser focus on the actual expenditures that we will plan to use the dollars for. So with that, any questions that anyone may have?
Thank you, Mayor Demings. Very good presentation, and with our continued economic prosperity and population growth, the two issues that we can't shrink away from are affordable housing in general, and then transportation needs over the next decade. So this is one of, I believe, the two most important issues that we can confront this year. So we appreciate you taking leadership on this issue. Commissioner Burns and then Commissioner Sheehan.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Mayor Demings, good morning, and thank you for your presentation, but also your vision for a better and more robust transportation system in Orange County. I had a couple of questions. Well, one main question in reference to the 10% for the municipalities. I know currently the city of Orlando commits about $4 million to links. When you talk about expanding links, that's something that's very important to me and very attractive. So my question was, with that 10%, and maybe this is something for you as well, Mayor Dyer, does that relieve the city of that $4 million that we commit currently to links, as well as the second part of that is the Sunrail operations? We know at some point the city and others will be responsible for Sunrail. Would this tax relieve us for the current links expenditures as well as the future Sunrail expenditures, over and beyond the 10% that the cities would get?
Yes, I believe so. Given the final decisions that the board will make, that's what we contemplate, is that this dedicated funding source and that 45% off the top will relieve you of that annual, assume general fund payment that you make to support links and Sunrail. It will no longer be, that would be part of the 45% off the top.
Good, thank you.
So you would use, hopefully, the council will use those dollars to support other needs of the city.
Exactly.
So I was going to say that's been the understanding between the technical staff of the city and the county, that our responsibility related to links, limo, and Sunrail would all come out of the 45%, not the 10%. Commissioner Sheehan.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mayor Demings, thank you for the presentation. I think it's really important to explain to people that this is enhancement money versus maintenance money, because I think that's something that people don't quite understand. When they leave their houses, they drive over a sidewalk that's paid with public dollars. They interact with a traffic signal that's paid for with public dollars. They have street lights that's paid for with public dollars, and I think they think that just falls down from heaven. But there's a bill that we as elected officials have to pay. So I appreciate you, communicating that in a way that people can understand. I think you've done a good job with that. And something that I have to point out to my District 4 residents, and I really appreciate the Transportation Division meeting with me and explaining that we are going to get brick street repairs. We are going to get street repairs. We are going to get green lights timed. And we are going to get sidewalks and pedestrian signals as part of this plan. So again, people have to understand that we have to pay for this somehow. With the way that our revenues have gone down with property tax reform, we have less and less dollars available, and this is a funding source to be able to do that. So I appreciate you communicating that, but I would be remiss not to communicate to my folks what the actual benefit to them is going to be, because that's what they're going to want to hear. So thank you.
Commissioner Hill.
Yeah, and one of the things, Commissioner, that people feel that for low-wage earners that the tax would be somewhat regressive, because the theory is that if you're a low-wage earner, you pay a disproportionate portion of your income for these types of things. But again, when we, this is part of a larger, I think, plan of action. I've talked about, the health-related benefits. I've talked about the housing-related and reducing the cost of transit. We will explore things with this tax, such as, if not offering free fares, maybe reduced fares for low-wage earners. We're trying to understand the numbers and what that would mean to ridership. We're even exploring if we do some type of rollback of the local option gas tax, which of course is shared with the municipalities today. We owe it to you. We're waiting on the data on that, so that if we roll back the local option gas tax, if this plan passes, that impacts everyone who fills up at the pumps. So we're trying to be, think outside of the box, but do something that is affordable, that we all say that this is the best interest of all of us in our community. Will there be a potential connection for the airport to the tourist corridor, where it may require some public dollars if that's going to happen? All of that is what we would have used from this dedicated funding source. So again, I said in the beginning that we want every person that we're asking to vote for this to somehow see themselves benefiting in the narrative of the story, realizing that not everyone is going to vote for it, but the goal is 50% plus one person.
Commissioner Hill is appearing virtually. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mayor Dimmons, for a great presentation and your forward thinking. I did have a few questions, and you somewhat surmised it to a degree, especially when it comes to housing and affordability. And as we see with the gas prices right now, this is something that is well needed. And I know the city under Mayor Dyer's leadership, we have a initiative of less cars and really focusing on mobility through many of the things that you discussed. But moving on to that, I think when we start thinking about transportation, we're really also talking about social economics and mental health. We have seen the increase in road rage, and it's really due to the gridlock that we have and people being anxious and stressed out on the roads. And I know anytime that I get on a train or I'm being driven around, that stress is off of me. And I just really think that that is something that we need as you start talking about mobility. And maybe we need to discuss more about how this is going to relieve the stress on folks and how it will decrease a road rage and crime and maybe, killings on the road. And the other component with the social economic component is people being able to, we have a very progressive plan, as you stated, working with our community partners, where you're creating housing near many of the venues where in tourism, and people being able to get to those locations where to work. But the other component is, prior to your tenure, there was a lot of bus systems and bus stops removed from the west side of Orlando, starting from Paramore, going all the way out to Pine Hills and Winter Garden. Whereas, transportation is key for those that can't afford to purchase some of the cars and that is depend on our bus system. And as we move forward in the, even the federal government say that they're going towards more electric vehicles, and that's going to be another issue. And I know the city and the county now is going towards more electric vehicles. How are we going to put those bus lines back in place there on the west side of Orlando and in the Winter Garden Apopka area where they've been removed? And forgive me, Commissioner Gray, if I'm overstepping my boundaries. You can deal with me when I get out of Washington and they beat me up here. How are we going to put more, because Lake Nona is becoming a city in itself within the city, and there's just so many different opportunities, but there's no bus stops. They're outside of the VA system.
Okay,
so you don't have to end with that one, but I'm just trying to see how we're going to reconnect many of our citizens to opportunities and access.
So, Commissioner Hill, those are excellent questions. Generally speaking, if we double the size of our Lynx fleet, we will be able to certainly double the number of stops throughout our community. That requires drivers. So, as I said before, there's an economic aspect to this. This is about job creation. With this $600 million that we would spend on an annual basis, it will impact a lot of other economic activity within our community. And so we will have an economic study with the total economic impact that will be presented to the board. We're updating the numbers now. And so we'll tell you the specific numbers, but there's no question that within, whether you're in East Orange County, West Orange County, West City of Orlando, you should see an improvement in terms of the connectivity with our bus system. We need a true mass transit system in order to get some cars, more cars off the roadway. If we didn't take more single vehicle cars, whether they're electric or not, off the road, you're still going to have traffic congestion. It still requires the building and the widening of roads and all of that. And some of that we will not be able to avoid. But if we really improve the mass transit capabilities within our community, it will lessen the traffic congestion on the roads. And if people can have a much more predictable commute, then they're likely to take some of these other options. I live 13 miles from my office in downtown Orlando. On a good day, I say that if I drove the speed limit, it would take me 22 minutes to get to work on average. Some days the 22 minutes is 44 minutes. And when I get up and I leave home in the morning, I never know which day that is going to be. And that's because our commutes are unpredictable because of traffic congestion associated with accidents. Where you have congestion, you have automobile traffic crashes. So by improving all of that, yes, we should see a significant improvement ultimately in the reduction in traffic crashes, a reduction in the road rage types of incidents that create frustration when people are moving about the community. But in all honesty, you're still going to have some of that is going to occur in our community. But this is forward-leaning, and I believe that your constituents throughout the city of Orlando will see a significantly improved service. The hours of operation for Lynx would be extended. We do have people who live a greater distance away from where they work, who rely on public transit. We have stories where single mothers spending 3 hours one way to get to work at a tourist theme park, and that's 6 hours a day. That if we can build more housing closer to where they're going to work, it cuts down on that commute time. It creates the opportunity for them to get some hours back in the day to do other things. It may be job skills training where they can move up within their current employ or move to other jobs within our community. So all of that is something that I believe will benefit the entire community. And I know that I spent a lot of time this morning, Mayor. Thank you for giving me the time. I'll get out of your way. I know that you all have your agenda development.
More commissioners.
You got some more questions? Okay. So
Commissioner Stewart and Commissioner Ortiz.
Mayor, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. I got a lot of small detail questions, but I guess probably the overarching question is, where has this type of referendum passed recently, like in the last 4, 5, 6 years? And
well,
what's the
it did
focus?
pass in Hillsborough County. It did pass in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area and several other areas around the country, out in California, small community in the Orange County, California area. It passed there. And some others, so we can get you a full
So when
list.
it passed, as opposed to when it failed, what was the key element? Was the key element really having the people know exactly what the money was going to be spent on?
Yes, and when we have visited these different jurisdictions, what we hear is that the average electorate had to see themselves benefiting from it. And you know, we've been able to hopefully demonstrate that the average person will benefit in some way. Now, there are going to be companies that will be created, and over time, that $18+ billion or so that will be generated from this. If you're in financial services, you're in the professional services, architectural, engineering firms, if you're a construction company, if you are a landscaper, if you're a realtor, or anyone that works for any of those entities, you will see how over time you can make a significant amount of money for the next 20 or 30 years. And so that's part of it. You have to make certain that everyone sees themselves in it. And I think timing is everything. The communities that have successfully passed it because they were able to articulate that the current system was failing, and that if you do nothing, it's only going to get worse. And then there are communities, we have been to London. We've been in London, you can see they have a mass transit system, but because of the way the roads were built so narrow, buildings very close to the roads themselves, they have traffic congestion. Fortunately, what we have here is land. We have the ability to better plan our communities, so our planning processes need to anticipate that. And you know, you talked about Lake Nona. They have autonomous vehicles, they have land, they have transit-oriented development plan there in the area. All of that has to be, I think, part of building a community by employing the smart city technologies or smart community technologies and integrating the communication of transportation systems to speak to one another across jurisdictional boundaries. And here, the key is that Orange County is the hub for the entire region. And if the hub for the region can have a dedicated funding source, and that's one of the things that all of these metropolitan or urban communities around America do have. They have dedicated funding sources for these types of initiatives. We do not within our community. And so as a region, you know, we go in and out of counties. The reason people live in, 87% of the people who live in Orange County work in Orange County. When you go to Osceola County, it's not that high. You know, the majority of people likely who live in Osceola County work in Orange. The same with Lake, the same with Volusia, Seminole, Brevard. They come into this job center here because they're coming in to work. And why did they move out? In many ways, they moved to those areas because of the cost of housing. So if we can work to try to, through this intersection of housing, stabilize the housing costs for low-wage earners, if we can put circulators within these job centers where people live there, and now they have a circulator to be able to get around. They don't need to have the high cost of automobile. If you pay attention to your automobile insurance policies, it's pricey. And if you own your home, homeowner's insurance, it's pricey today within Florida. So renters, we want that price to be down, and so that's why we have this broader vision of this housing trust fund. This year, the state, for the first time in the planned budget, will hopefully, I think they vote on it today, there'll be more dollars for housing initiatives here within the state of Florida, and we're leveraging that against federal dollars. So it's a comprehensive plan of multiple reasons, I think, why it passed. What they have also said to us was that there needed to be kind of central leadership, where someone owned it. I work very closely with Mayor Dyer and all of you here to make certain that the decisions that we're making is comprehensive. We will be asking, the various city and town councils through resolution to support this initiative. Several have already provided their resolutions going forward. The reason we're sharing a portion of these proceeds because we realize that we are all inextricably tied to one another. We're tied to one another as a region. I believe that the other surrounding counties are watching very carefully what happens here because we don't have a lot of other options to bring local dollars to the table in any significant amount. Osceola County tried this and failed just a couple of years ago because they didn't spend the type of time that we have invested on the front end, listening to the citizens and then building what the citizens said that they wanted.
Let me, I'll get a chance to talk with y'all later on. Let me ask this question.
In Broward County, 2019.
Broward County?
Yeah.
The 45-45-10 is an important understanding to me. It's a resource that we will look at that we can use. The 45 on mass transit, it's very simple to understand. The idea that if we're spending money in the local option gas tax that we have to links, and you're going to spend that money in links as a sales tax, and it frees up money doing something else. That makes a lot of sense to me. The 10% of money allocated to the city, I understand that. I guess where I'm having a challenge is, I guess looking at the projects, where are we in the 45% of the county projects? In my case, as an example, on the edge of my district and several of ours is Colonial Drive. If you take over Colonial Drive as a county project, what will happen to the work inside the city limits of Colonial Drive? Will you take that on as well, so allow us to spend our money more efficiently in other locations, and that'll be part of that 45%?
Yeah, so even though Colonial Drive is a state road, we do anticipate the state putting in some dollars, but in order to have consistency and general use benefit for everyone, and in some ways, if it's if there are county roads that run through the municipalities, we will take on the O&M for those roads, and that's why the county's portion has to be a bit different. We have 2,700 miles of roads in Orange County, and today about 1 in 4 of them have failed. It's projected that in the next 20 years that if we don't do anything, the majority of them will have failed by that period of time.
I guess I'm asking a practical question. On the 45%, that takes away some of the projects that we would have spent in the city of Orlando. It seems to me that lets us leverage more money that we would get, the $34 million that you're proposing, versus getting 22% of the $660 million a year. So the idea is that if we've got in our budget that we're doing Colonial and we're doing 1792 and we're doing 441, the areas that's in my district, and it's in our budget, but you're going to take over that responsibility, it kind of reduces our role on our 34 million and lets you take that 45% and use that for these major arterial roads that we have in our community.
So you're correct. So in the 45 off the top, City of Orlando will benefit in some ways because of the 45 off the top. We talked a little bit about you would no longer, for your O&M portion of for Sunrail or Links, you wouldn't be paying that. Then the 45 for the county, the City of Orlando is going to benefit in some regard because some of the projects that will be identified will have concurrent types of jurisdiction and you'll benefit. But then the 10% that you're getting is specifically City of Orlando projects based upon your percentage of the population within the county.
I guess I'll
So
close with this.
if you add it up, if we were able to quantify,
Yeah.
and it would take we probably could tell you that once the true lists are fully identified, your 10% that the taxpayers in Orange and the City of Orlando will benefit more than the 10% that Orlando directly is receiving.
Yeah, and that's really kind of what I'm trying to get to, is that when it comes out and people see that Orlando is the economic generator for Orange County, and Orange County is the economic generator for the region, there's a feeling that people will want Orlando to get more out of it. And there's going to be some kind of 34 million direct cost, and then there's going to be some indirect costs that we'll get. That will be Links and Sunrail, and there'll be some quantified numbers we can put to that we can share.
Yeah, and that's the economic impact study that I was telling you that you'll be provided with, because you may benefit from the business taxes, or what have you, from the permitting processes, because those businesses that are working within this space, they may be in the City of Orlando. Good probability they will be. And so, again, the return on the investment, what we're doing here is saying that through the sales tax revenues, we're going to take $600 million and invest in these ways. Well, there's a return on investment from that is going to be far more than $600 million, okay, as a community over time. And so that's something that we want you to understand. So the economic impact study will tell you that the potential number of jobs that will be created, the type of wages that those jobs will pay. Some of those jobs are going to be high wage jobs. They're professional jobs. Others may be construction workers. And don't look at it just as construction related to transportation, but the building, the mixed use projects that will be around those transit stations that will serve as a catalyst. If we do this right, we will identify those areas where we want transit-oriented development. Again, for the application for the federal government, they've said that that's important to them. They want to see the transit-oriented development as part of your overall plan. So Renzo is here, and Renzo Nastasi from our Transportation Engineering Division, he works very closely with your staff. So the technical staff will get into the granular level of how will this all work, in reality. But they will come forward with the projects to make sure it fits within the criteria that's been established. They'll wrestle with all the details associated with what you're talking about here. And so throughout, you'll be updated. You'll receive these updates. So we start collecting. We will start collecting in 2023. And I think timing, again, is everything, because as we talk about the cost of owning an automobile, gas, and all those other things, if we can give people an option that is convenient, well-connected, that is timely for them, just perhaps some of them will decide to get out of an automobile and onto one of these other modes of transportation.
I appreciate you being here, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Ortiz.
We'll make it fast. Mine is more a praise than anything else. thank you for your goodwill. Thank you for your compromise and for your consistency on something that definitely affects our community. Brightline is coming to the airport. It's going to come over to the airport intermodal, and with that, we did a study years ago which resulted in the possibility of a bus rapid transit through the corridor, and I know that you have included it in the plan, so I want to thank you for that too. People don't realize, they criticize sometimes the region for not having enough housing, so we're working on that adamantly, and with housing also comes a need of transportation. I want to suggest as a marketing tool for you guys, back in 2014, the school board asked for a second wave of that half a cent, and that is going to expire in a couple of years. So that 7.5 comes back down to 7. So as basically people are already used to a 6.5, so you're actually after a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, it's just going to add half a cent at the end of the day. So that may be something that resonates with the clientele out there.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on the marketing. Remember, this is a political campaign. The government cannot use its resources to advocate, to say vote for this. We can only provide factual information as an elected official. You know, I can speak to these issues, but we have created a PAC called Moving Orange County Forward, where we will raise the dollars to communicate, to talk about the plan, to address that. So that is all, it is set up, it's ready to go. We're in the process of that. As you all know, the legislature just, if the governor signs it into law, is restricting what local governments can do. You know, we can communicate in open forums. We can provide factual information in those open forums. We can, distribute hard copies of factual information, but they are concerned about that fine line of passing, transitioning over into advocacy, where there are certain things that would be
You're just stating the facts.
Yeah. So, I'm going to continue for the balance of the period of time to hopefully get our Board of County Commission to vote for it, to advance it to the ballot on the 26th. And then I'll be advocating to the electorate. And I'll stand in every forum just like I have at this point and take questions along with our very capable staff in some regards, and then there'll be a whole team of community leaders who will be involved in the advocacy portion. We hope that some of you will join us in that process and get this passed. It has been a long time. Mayor Dyer, 2003. Mayor Dyer and others tried to advance this. It's been 19 years. Since anyone attempted this in this community, and things have worsened over time.
Mayor, we've got one more follow-up from Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. And move Orange County forward. You just reminded me this is a political campaign. For those that want to be a part of that, how would they contact the PAC? Move Orange County forward. That's all I want to know.
Mayor, I don't think we ought to be getting into that in a public forum.
So, all right, thank you.
Commissioner, because that, gets into some other things, but just know that, talk to me, we'll get you all hooked up. Okay?
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
And Mayor, we'll be bringing forward a resolution of support for the council's consideration for your vote in April.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Sorry we took so much time, but I know it's an important issue to our community. All right. God bless.
Thank you so much. All right, that concludes our workshop for today. We'll stand in recess for a few minutes and then start our agenda review meeting.